I told my first boss to
Tom is a business coach and consultant who runs a successful online sales and marketing education company called Creator Launch.
Tom's journey started 10 years ago as a dentist working what he thought was his dream job until he realized that it wasn't the dream he expected.
the F around and find out approach.
Tom spent the next 6 years working in the tech industry as a digital consultant to enterprise, retail, and luxury brands, helping their team improve their online customer journey.
The biggest shift that I've made is
But then 3 years ago, he quit and went all in on entrepreneurship. And since then, he's dedicated his time to building online communities for tech businesses, creators, and now himself.
I never felt like I could be myself. Fast forward to today where I'm a creator, I'm my own boss. I have full autonomy and freedom to be the person that I truly am.
Stick around to the end to get his exact strategy behind his 100K a month online business, his content workflow, and learn the $1 million mindset you need to know as an entrepreneur to thrive online.
That's actually the secret. The secret is...
Well, Tom, great having you here. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, it's I love spending time with you guys. We spent a lot of time together over the past few months, and I was like, we need to make this way more official and spend even more time with each other and actually get to chat and shoot the shit. So super excited to be here.
Awesome.
Sounds good.
We feel the same. So this is the Content Era, a podcast by creative entrepreneurs for creative entrepreneurs. And what we aim to do on this podcast is provide value to our listeners when it comes to mindset, business, content creation, and putting ourselves out there in the content era that we live in today. With so much noise out there and so many gurus and approaches on how to do things, we're just kind of putting our little 2 cents out there as well and bringing on people like you that can offer some great value that can benefit everybody listening. So
Love it.
Fast forward to today. You have over 14,000 YouTube subscribers, 8,000 Instagram followers. What strategies did you use to grow your audience to these numbers, and how is your following online on these social platforms? How is it contributing to your business success that you have today?
Yeah, so to be completely transparent with you guys, I feel like I only in the past couple of weeks have started for the first time really actually trying to grow on social media. Up until now, I have, I posted my first YouTube video 7 years ago when I was like, okay, I want to be a content creator. I was watching Casey Neistat videos. I was watching 4 or 5 years ago, I started watching Ali Abdaal videos. Two of the guys that really pushed people to being, the big kind of instigators for many creators. And so I was like, I'm just going to get on this journey. So I remember 7 years ago, I started practicing vlogging. So I did about 10 vlogs during a summer, just to practice how to edit, how to whatever, just to try do stuff. And then I remember 4 years ago, I was like, okay, I'm going to do this thing now. I'm going to be like Ali Abdaal. And I made a couple of videos, and it took me 10 hours to kind of script, film, edit, post. And this is whilst I had a full-time job, and it was overwhelming. I was like, how the hell can anyone do this? So I don't know how Ali Abdaal did it when he had a full-time job working as a doctor, and he was doing these crazy videos and edits and shit. Because I gave up after 3 videos. I was like, this is unsustainable. I absolutely cannot do it. This is not fun at all. What I found out was that I hate editing. I don't enjoy the process of editing. Whereas some people love it. And so I think this is the point where, okay, Seb loves it. And I can't relate to it. It feels, I know some people absolutely love it, and I'm just like, I just do not. I love the creative aspect of trying to make things look a certain way. But the time, it's so time consuming. It feels so time consuming and challenging. But my journey has just been again, my core philosophy of effing around and finding out, trying different things out, really following, this is a big thing that I'm a huge proponent of, is like following your instinct. So a big thing for me is I make content for me. Like, and I think some people talk about this, some creators talk about this. I think it's hard to like really, it's hard to kind of explain really, but I try and make content that it just comes from within. It just feels like, okay, I've got an idea and I don't know why I have that idea, but I just try and go with the flow. And then I try and make stuff in relation to like what I like. What do I visually like? What do I kind of think is cool looking? What I'm trying to please me. And I think that's actually the secret. The secret is you make content for you. And this is where people go wrong, is that they try and get into content creation and they see a certain style, they see a certain format, and they're like, okay, I'm going to do that. But they unfortunately, they pick a style and a format that isn't what is like resonant to them. And so say, for example, like, really easy example is like the difference between someone who's got an innate kind of interest and like for like writing versus video. For me, I'm a video first person. So video is my, like, I love video. Writing for me is like, that's a secondary thing. That's actually the writing is kind of the skill that allows me to do video.
Yeah.
But it's very much, I'm video first. So it gives me energy making video type of content. But for some people, like, it's going to take energy from them. And it's going to feel like an uphill, like pushing a rock uphill as opposed to pushing it downhill. So that's the one thing, the big thing that I tell my clients when they're kind of making the jump into content creation is first pick one format that you really feel resonant to, and then pick the one platform that you feel pulled towards. And then you go all in on that platform and you go all in on that format until you've mastered it. And this is the mistake I made for ages, where I tried to post 9 times on TikTok, LinkedIn, Spotify, YouTube,
right,
Instagram, everywhere at the same time. And I didn't grow anywhere. And so the biggest shift that I've made is one platform, all in.
Yeah, I would say if you're doing it on your own, the best way to do it is definitely just pick one platform and like get really good at it, like figure out what works. And once you're seeing the results and you have the capacity to expand onto others, then by all means go for it. Or of course, if you have a team behind you, like, Gary Vee, Alex Hormozy, then by all means, be on every single platform, be omnipresent. But I mean, it takes a lot of manpower and a lot of dollars. So let's be real about that.
I think it's a really real, like, one of the biggest misconceptions, because everyone listens to Hormozy and Gary Vee, and I was the same. I listened to Gary Vee for years, being like, you need to post 9 times a day on every single platform. Well, guess what? I did, and I didn't grow on any. And I think that's because the message was, it was, I don't know where the message is getting like misconstrued, but it is as simple as you said, Jazz. It's like, are you on your own? If you are, you pick one platform and you master it. Do you have team and resources and money? Go have fun. Go like go like get your, like, be omnipresent and do that. I do still think like one of my friends who's a pretty large creator called Ross Harkness, he's kind of omnipresent, got big kind of audiences on multiple platforms. He told me this. I went for coffee with him last year, and he said, because I told him, I was like, dude, I'm really struggling to grow on anywhere at the moment. And he's like, look, the one lesson I've learned is that you can post on all platforms, but you can only grow on one at a time.
Yeah, I think it makes sense.
Yeah, and that's the lesson that I've learned this year. So at the beginning of this year, I stopped posting on LinkedIn. I stopped posting on wherever the hell else I was trying to post, TikTok. So I post only on Instagram and YouTube. And guess what? Both of those have grown. And so, the big lesson learned.
Yeah, I think it's the same idea as like, you know, Alex talks about this, Alex Hermosi, particularly this one video where he demonstrates with like little plastic cups and this blue liquid. And it's just like, you know, where your, you know, focus and energy goes, your attention flows. And if you're trying to disperse that between many different, you know, cups, so to speak, or ventures, or in this case platforms, then all of that's going to be diluted, versus if you're going to put all of your energy and effort into one, obviously it's going to overflow much sooner, much quicker. So
Yeah.
So definitely, to recap what you said, basically like the content value is more important than the production value. Like what you're saying and the words and the meaning that they have, I feel like that can really create a disconnect for a lot of creators of wanting to create content that is like very flashy or looks a certain way or has all these elements that they aspire to, but then they miss out on that core, the value that they're delivering, right?
Yeah, like big time. I think it's messaging comes first. Messaging is what pays the bills. And the truth is that for this past year of my business, I have just kept my social media kind of like efforts kind of just chugging along without much effort and energy, because I've been focusing on making sure I'm getting amazing results for my clients, which is, I think, is the way it should be. And it's only now that I've kind of got like, I've got the evidence and proof that my clients are crushing it and that my systems and processes work, that now I'm like, okay, I can now start pushing this message to broader audiences, because I want to help more people. But yeah, absolutely. It's like messaging comes first, making sure that you can like, you actually have something to monetize. So it's actually, you have to have an offer, you then have messaging, make sure that you can bring people into an offer. And then, the next step is putting in lots of reps. And that is what gets you to the point of having quality content, where you can start focusing on quality, is after you put in lots of reps, because naturally, as you put in the reps, you're going to get a tiny bit better every single time.
For sure.
I tell my clients, the 1% rule, like every piece of content, just aim to be 1% better versus going for the 100% each time. So you yourself post consistently, and you post high value content. Could you guide us through your workflow and the process on maybe from ideation to publishing, how you go about publishing that high value content consistently?
For sure. So actually this is kind of a good timely topic, because like I said, this is the first time that I'm kind of going all in feeling like I'm really going to give it a crack. So at the beginning of the year, I set myself the goal of having 50,000 followers on Instagram. And the date is, we're in the beginning of August, and I currently have about 8,000 followers on Instagram. That's because I haven't tried to grow. Like, I haven't put any energy into it since at the beginning of the year, because I've been focusing on my business. Now I'm like, okay, it's time to go now. So I'll talk you through exactly the process that I've gone through. First up is just making sure that we're aware that if you're really going to go all in, we have to be consistent. Minimum, we're talking 5 days a week. Better is 7 days a week. And then understanding that there is benefit in posting multiple times a day. And so I'm in that process now of going kind of like ramping up to 2 times a day, and then eventually get up to 3 times a day. A second part of my content piece with Instagram strategy specifically, and this is the same with all platforms, is making sure that you're using the full suite of tools that they give you. So if we're talking Instagram, the full suite of tools are, we've got images, we can post carousels, we can post video reels, we can post long video reels, we can go live, we can send DMs, we can do polls, we can do engagement things like sliders and stories. We want to make sure, if we're going to giving ourselves the best chance to crush on a single platform, that we are using the full suite of tools. And that just shows the algorithm, it shows Instagram that you're there and you're taking this seriously. And you benefit from it. It shows your stuff to more people. So really what I'm thinking of right now is, how do I do kind of, let's just say five good quality posts a week? My process is really simple. I choose 3 creators who are in my niche or niche adjacent. I then go to their profiles, and it's easiest to do this on like a laptop, on Instagram, on a browser, on your laptop or computer. And I go to their profiles, and with the cursor, I scan across their content and I look for outliers. So I'm talking like, what pieces of content have significantly more likes or significantly more shares or significantly more comments. And I did this process literally yesterday and today. So I filmed 10 shorts today. I actually scripted and filmed 10 shorts this morning. What I did was yesterday, I spent an hour and I chose 3 creators in my niche. Only 2 creators in my niche. One which is kind of like slightly more creator-based content, and one which is more kind of like business-based content. I took 5 ideas from each. So I went and did the cursor thing. I looked for content which had, this is kind of an important thing here. I really keep it really simple. I'm looking for 2 types of content. I'm looking for exposure content, so content that's going to give me big reach, and I'm looking for conversion content which is going to show me as an authority and get people to want to buy from me. And I'm looking at about a 50-50 split for those. So, if out of 10 pieces of content, 5 is going to be exposure content, trying to get as many eyeballs on things as possible. So for that, I'm looking for already validated viral ideas from other creators. And then the other 5 is going to be like authority-based content, which is showcasing results, showcasing client case studies, showcasing testimonials, showcasing my unique mechanisms, stuff that's going to show me as like, okay, this is someone who I could potentially work with, why I'm different to other people. So what I did yesterday, I got 5 ideas that are potentially viral, 5 ideas which are like kind of more authority-based content. I then I downloaded the video, and you can do this with an easy, like, if you search like Instagram video downloader on a browser, you'll find some stuff. You can just put a link in, downloads the video. I then go and put that into a tool called Descript. And there'll be other tools out there. And that allows me to get the script from the video. What I then do is I have a system that I built on Notion. I take the script, I have a content calendar. I then create a new kind of like content piece. And I take the script, put it in that little Notion page, and then I use that kind of structure and format of that script, and I write my own script. The script that I create is typically nothing like the script that I've like taken inspiration from, because it never can be. But I use it as a starting point, and so that is what allowed me to create. Today it took me 3 hours to download the videos, pull the scripts, write my scripts, and get them all good, ready to go. And then it took me an hour to record. So it took me about 4 hours to make 10 videos. And then those get sent to my content team, who do the editing and stuff for me.
Wow, you really are an open book. I love that. Thanks so much for sharing all that.
All good.
No secrets here. No gatekeeping here.
No cap.
No gap.
That's awesome. Yeah, I honestly, seeing it from an external point of view here, I think you have a pretty solid system.
Oh yeah.
It mimics ours in many ways too. We use something called like the scamper method. So like substitute, combine, modify, add, paraphrase. It just, it stands for a bunch of stuff, but you see what's working out there, right? Because a lot of the times it's the hook and the structure, right? The flow of the content, how information is presented, and the curiosity or retention of, I want to get to that end delivery of value. So I'll stick around and watch 30, 45 seconds of your video. Yeah. And that's a hard thing to get good at. You have the hook value or hook reward and then CTA structure, but once you really start breaking it in deeper into the words that are being said, it's a really great strategy to to, as they say, steal like an artist from people that are doing a really good job and learn from those and, adapt it into your own messaging.
Yeah.
Like,
and go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, that is, I use the good artists borrow, great artists steal. The best creators out there are very open with the fact that they're always looking for high performing content, and they make their own version on. So that is a huge part of, like I said, this is the first time I'm actually giving it a crack. When I've tested this out and done it once or twice, it works. And so now I know, kind of like going full force with this, you're completely right about the hooks. The most important part of the video is the hook. So I try and take as close to the structure of the video that I've taken inspiration from for the hook. I try and keep that as close as possible. And the rest of the video, I'm just adding my own flavor into it, and making it my own.
Yeah.
But the hook is, especially for high viral exposure content, I'm really paying attention to the first 5-10 seconds of that video, and especially the first 3 seconds. So I kind of want to keep that structure, and also what happens in the video itself, take inspiration from the actual video, and take inspiration from that.
Yeah
Definitely.
When you say authority content, can you just break that down a little bit, what you mean by that?
Yeah, for sure. So kind of the core thesis of the creator economy is based around credibility and authority, and as quite simply just being someone worth listening to. And so how do you be someone worth listening to? You kind of have to show that you know what you're talking about. Now, there's actually a distinction that people screw up here quite frequently. Now, they think that, and this is a mistake that I've made, in that if I create content that shows people how to do things, if I show them the technicalities, if I show them that I know how to do stuff, whether it's demos, walkthroughs, or whatever, if I show that stuff, people are going to be like, this guy knows what he's talking about, I'm going to buy from him. And turns out that's not the case. So it's actually not the content that we want to be making. We want to be making content, instead of how content, we want to make why content.
Yes.
And this is the difference between essentially people being like, okay, like Tom's just given me the answer. Like, I just said how to make content. Like, that's Tom giving me with how content.
Yeah.
Whereas what we want is, we want to be able to show our audience that we actually know the answer, and that we have the answer, but we're not going to give it. And it's a small distinction. It's the difference between creating how content and why content. And why shows us that we have the answer. How content gives people the answer. And when I'm talking about authority content, that's really the key there, is that I'm showcasing that I know why things happen. Why, I use this example, like explaining why content is better than how content is in itself a type of authority content. But it's a different thing, because I have made the mistake of making way too much how content, giving people because we've all listened to Alex Hormozi talk about, give away everything, sell the implementation.
Right.
The problem is that you can give away everything, but if everything is there, people are just going to take it and they're not going to pay you for anything.
Right.
And this is the case. So there's, again, it's a small little thing, but it's like, don't give away templates. Don't give away all these, all the tools that you have created, which is intellectual property. Don't give that stuff away. Explain to people why things work, and let them be curious enough to be interested in what you do. And then if they want access to it, then they're going to pay you to work with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Curiosity is a powerful tool in content and in business, I would say.
And this is where we head into a conversation about marketing, right? Because marketing, we're talking about knowing your audience, their pain points, their desires, and allowing our business or ourselves to help them bridge that gap. So when we make content, we do need to we need to level out with them, empathize, and understand where they're at, understand where they're going to get to, and then either give a why or a how on achieving that goal. And what I've kind of learned throughout the years, and more so I really thought about this recently, is you can tell somebody exactly step by step on how to do something, but at the end of the day, their lack of understanding about everything else around it and their own life constraints will really limit the success of that being implemented. And to me, that's where I will go out and hire somebody, because like, sure, I could spend the next 5-6 hours learning how to do this, and I may miss some stuff that I just don't know enough about it, or I can just pay you. And I think that's where a Grand Slam offer comes in. It's like, if it's something that will solve all these problems and be at a reasonable price where it just makes sense to me, like, I'll just let you handle that. Right?
Yeah, look, I'll be honest. I had that situation recently. And yet the truth is, it's exactly what you guys do. I, for the past year, have really, really struggled to find a professional offer and opportunity for someone who can edit and look after my content, my short form content. And I recently had someone who kind of reached out to me, and for the first time, it was like someone who came across professionally and who was like, I can do this for you. I've got a couple of different ways in which I work with people. And for the first time, I was like, this is a no-brainer. Like, this is a no-brainer offer. And I was signed up within a couple of days, because the amount of like I said to you earlier, I hate editing. And so I'd been editing. People would always tell me, they'd be like, Tom, who's your editor? And I'm like, I hate to say it, it's me. I've been editing my own content for like a year, and it is, not only do I hate it, which takes away energy from me to do other stuff, but it's also extremely time consuming, and I don't do the best job. So it's like a quadruple whammy. And having someone come in who has been able to take that from me, own that, and own the content management side, allows me to put my energy into probably the most important thing that I should be doing, which is ideation and like doing it. So
right.
like the creative side, I should be doing the creative side. And that to me is like, yeah, so I'm now, I work, obviously you guys are in a different niche to me, but I work with a similar team to what you guys are. And it has been incredible. Like, to have relationship, to have a relationship with someone who has, be able to kind of work creatively off each other. It's been absolutely amazing. And yeah, definitely feel like in that kind of like realm now, which is like, hopefully work together for a long time.
That's awesome. I'm stoked for you that you found that balance, because yeah, like you said, it could be very overwhelming. And now your attention is focused back on the business, on the messaging, which actually leads to my next question. I believe that just posting without a goal or a strategy on social media isn't textbook marketing, right? Marketing is a little bit more complex than that. Like we talked about, problems, desires, positioning, messaging. They're super, super important. You got to have a strong brand. So with that being said, marketing could often be overwhelming for a lot of entrepreneurs stepping into that content creation space. What would be your main 3 things that you think an entrepreneur needs to have in place if they want to market themselves online?
So the first thing is just understanding who you want to serve. So like, that's just the non-negotiable, is like, you need to understand who it is that you want to have as a perfect client. And part of that process is knowing that you're probably going to have to go on a journey to figure out what that perfect client is. And I've been on that journey in the past year, so I know exactly what it's like because I've just done it. And it's taken me a while. It's taken me a year to refine my messaging, to refine my marketing, and to refine my offer, to refine everything. And it's really only after a year where I feel like, oh, okay, I kind of, this feels like it's getting close to being right now. Like feels really, really, really close. But it's taken a while. So we have to start somewhere. So the first thing is like understanding you need to have some sort of an idea of who you're going to serve. And at the start, it doesn't have to be like precise and specific. What it needs to be is in the general direction. You need to know you're going in the general direction. So that's first things first, is like you kind of need to know who you're going to serve. The best way to do that really is you need to think, who do you want to work with? Like, who do you want to be spending time with? Think about who the people you've worked with in the past are, who has given you energy, and then most importantly, figure out who you don't want to work with, and just flat out don't work with them. I mean, last week I went through a bit of a situation where I had to say no to someone who I didn't want to work with, and they didn't like that. They didn't like the fact that I was saying no, and unfortunately, that means I've got a person who's going around who's going to sling my name around and say that I'm an asshole. You have to be it's tricky. You have to be comfortable with the fact that that's going to happen when you put yourself out there. And the next thing is, do not try and reinvent the wheel. This is a big lesson that I guide my clients on. And it's really, the natural assumption when you enter entrepreneurship is you need to come up with brand new ideas. Like there's this I felt it, it's like you need to come up with the idea of Facebook. Like everyone, entrepreneurship is so far from that. And so I keep things really simple for my clients. I say, go figure out who kind of ballpark you want to serve. Like, who are the types of people you want to be working with? And then it's like, you now need to go and use the vast, endless amount of information that we have available to us at our fingertips, the search engines, the social media platforms, the infinite amount of information out there. You need to go find some people who are already serving those people. Yeah, like you need to go and find those people. And what you do is you find those people and you say, okay, do I think this person is doing ballpark what I think I could be doing or would love doing in like 5 to 10 years time? That's the timeline we're ideally looking at.
Okay.
And when you've identified those people and you're going to be like, okay, you're going to go, I'm heading in this direction. I don't know how I'm going to get there yet, but I'm saying this person's doing this stuff and I'm going to head in that direction. And the great thing is that person who's doing that thing, they've already validated an offer, they've validated a market, they've validated a demand, they've validated desires, they've validated problems, they've validated bloody everything. They've done all the hard work for you.
Yeah, exactly.
And you may not be able, you will not have the skills to be able to offer what that person or business or whatever is offering, but you can start to chunk that together. You can start to chunk away at it and start to learn the micro skills that will eventually build you up to that point. And that's where I'm like, you go find someone that's crushing it, get inspired by them, and then you reverse engineer to get there. And you don't go into the market and say like, okay, hey, I'm Tom. I'm here selling my thing that's going to really help you out. And it hasn't got clear messaging, so no one knows what the hell it is. And like, but it costs this much. Do you want it? Like, no. Go find something that's selling and that is you're curious about, you're interested in. Go find someone that's crushing it and go reverse engineer, look at their messaging, look at the way their marketing happens, marketing works. And in the industry, technically you'd call it funnel hacking, like going and actually going through their sales process. Hey, get on calls with their sales team. Like go and be curious, figure out what they're doing, figure out how they're doing things. Don't feel like you need to come in and reinvent the wheel. So that's my number 2. And then number 3, let's see if I can make something up on the fly here, because I think those two are the most important things. Third thing is then just like coming in with the attitude, especially if you're coming into like social media. Go in with no expectations and just say, I'm going to make 100 units of whatever this needs to be, whether that's a short, whether that's a YouTube video, whatever your platform is, whether it's 100 days of posting, 100 units. And then you do not stop until you've done 100 units. Like that to me is what I did. I saw a video from a guy creator called Noah Kagan. I talked about this a few years ago, and this is when I was going on the Ali Abdaal thing about 4 or 5 years ago. And he said the rule of 100. Make 100 videos, and that's what I did. So I've got a couple of 100 videos on YouTube. I've made over 100 shorts, probably a couple of hundred. A few hundred. I made a shit ton of videos. But I said to myself, I'm not going to stop until I made at least 100.
Beauty.
So know who you're serving. Find somebody who has done what you want and learn from them, deconstruct it and apply those lessons, and do the reps. Do at least 100 reps of them.
Yeah.
It's like going to the gym. You can't, do 10 push-ups and say, how come I don't see results? You got to be in there for it. Probably 100 days before you start really seeing that growth that you're looking for. And that's a really good mindset to have.
For sure. And just to touch a final thing on the reps, we've all been to the gym where we're looking at someone who's clearly maybe they haven't been there before, or they're new and they're doing some weird ass exercise that makes no sense. And everyone's thinking the same thing. So that's why you go and find someone who's doing it and you learn from them. And that's what mentorship and education is about. So that's why we have coaches in the gym. That's why we have coaches in business, coaches like across all types of endeavors. That's where you learn the skills from.
For sure.
Definitely.
Is that kind of how where your one simple flywheel methodology came from? Did you also kind of piece it together by reverse engineering from someone else's idea or offer? Or was that something that just kind of came naturally to you or just made sense to you?
You can look at my YouTube and you can see the evolution of my, what I call a unique mechanism. And it went through versions, and my version is as it stands now, and I'm sure it'll be different to whatever things look like in a couple of years' time. The point is that this is the secret of entrepreneurship that no one ever talks about. But the secret is that everything works. Like literally everything works. The problem is that people don't give the one thing long enough for it to work, and they jump from one thing to another thing before the first thing has worked, because everything works. If we talk about marketing, we look at the main mechanisms of marketing. We've got cold outreach, cold email, cold DMs. Hey, there are people making absolute bank doing those things, right? Yeah. And we've got paid ads. People are making absolute bank doing paid ads. Every single thing works, but you have to go all in on it. And I heard this from Sam Ovens, actually. It was in a video that he posted. He was giving away his whole Facebook advertising strategy. This must have been about 6-7 years ago. And he said, and this is at the time, his business consulting.com was quite a few years old, was well established and was crushing it, probably doing like a couple of million a month or whatever. And he was like, I have put 4 years into figuring out how to do this very specific Facebook ad funnel. Like, it was literally just running Facebook ads to a webinar. And he was like, everyone wants the shortcut. I was willing to do the same thing and get amazing, become the best in the world at this one funnel. And that's why he crushed it. And that's the one lesson.
4 years.
4 years, yeah, on the same funnel. He was like, but most people don't have, I remember him saying this clearly because I will never forget him saying this, but most people don't have the guts to stick with something for that long, to really master something. That to me was like a real kind of like perspective shift of like, you know what, everything works, and you just have to pick the thing that feels most kind of like, like intuitive to you, but you have to go all in and you have to say, I will absolutely master this, and it may take years. And that's why like the kind of the my one simple flywheel approach that I've got, it frankly is an evergreen business model, based around content, based around advertising, and there's many people who are doing the same thing. It's just an evergreen thing. So I'm just going to be here, and I'm gonna master it. I'm gonna just rinse it until I can't rinse it anymore.
Well,
a big part of business is positioning. Just to borrow from what you're saying, that everything works. It's kind of like King of the Hill. You ever play that game where you're trying to fight to see who stays on top? Well,
yeah,
it is in a way a war to see who lasts the longest. And if you can claim that spot and own that spot and be very good at that spot, then you become known for that. You're the king of that hill, right? Versus like, I got a little bit here and there. It's like, you're now king of no hill. But if I know that like that's your hill, it could be not for me or it could be for me, but I know that where you stand, where your approach is, how you do things. And that's really, when it comes to personal branding, what can really strengthen your identity in the public eye, because you can't be a jack of all trades. You got to be a master of the one.
Dude,
Definitely.
that is the absolute like premium message of this this chat that we've had. I am so in on that message, and this is as someone who feels like he isn't a master of any hill yet, but that is, if I'm going with any intent, it is that I am going to try and be that king of that hill, and not do what everyone else does, which is see a shiny object and then jump and start climbing another hill and sitting. And so you are absolutely right. Like, I look at the people in my industry who I look at as I want to be in their position in 5-10 years time, and it is because they have just climbed one hill and they have not flip-flopped from one to the other. And so yeah, like I listened to guys like when Sam Ovens said that, I was like, okay, the game is, you have to look at things with a different lens. The challenge though is, so we talk about the shiny object syndrome, is that we do the narrative and rhetoric that gets thrown around in the entrepreneur space is that things change. There's always a new opportunity. Things stop working. And the truth is that like, that doesn't happen that much. Like, it really doesn't. Like, things that were working like a few years ago, like fundamentally they still can work, but people are always looking to be able to sell the new opportunity. Right. And I think like that when it comes to like, what am I trying to do? I made a commitment to myself, and who knows if this will materialize or not. But when I was a dentist, I said to myself, and again, maybe I was naive or whatever, but I was like, I'm going to be the best dentist in the world. And I set myself that challenge when I graduated. I was like, I'm just going to be the best dentist in the world. And weirdly, there was actually kind of a way in which you knew who they were. Like, there was, especially in the cosmetic world, there were like the top like 10 guys. It was kind of like an unwritten, like, these are the top guys. And for the best part of 10 years, I haven't had anything to like anchor to. Now I feel like I can see where I can potentially go. I'm like, okay, I just want to be the best business coach. That to me is like, okay, well, now if you're going to be the best business coach, you look at what the best business coaches are doing. They ain't flip-flopping. They ain't shiny object syndroming.
Yeah.
They have stuck to one thing, and a lot of them are teaching the same methodology that they taught 6 years ago, 7 years ago, because it works. So big lesson to me there is, I feel like that's been a big perspective shift for me, is realizing that we have time on our side. I look at a gym launch from Alex Hormozy as an example. That company's still around, and it's still crushing it, and it's still crushing it in the exact same way they did it 6, 7, 8 years ago.
Are you familiar with Myron Golden?
Yes, I am. Yes.
Yeah.
He is He is because he's actually the I think the mentor of one of my person who I've kind of learned from, coach. So yeah, I'm familiar with him through that.
Nice. Yeah.
Wealth of
When
knowledge.
you talk about like sticking with one methodology for years and years and years, I mean, this guy I think is a really great example of it. He actually teaches principles like from the Bible, like the book of King Solomon. So talk about like, you know, long term, like not shiny object, like sticking with one thing. So he really preaches that, and obviously like everything he teaches is like gold. Like absolutely love
Golden.
it.
Yeah.
Golden. Yeah.
He teaches like, you know, there's the platform algorithm and there's the human algorithm. And I think that's more so what he teaches is the things that are hard coded into our brains, into our DNA as humans. And it really just breaks it down in a way that like, you know, trends are always going to change. The thing that changes are the trends. It's the application or the packaging of how things are done, but how things are done doesn't really change. That stuff like marketing 101 is like basics that will forever just storytelling. Like that's always going to be a thing. How the story is told, that's the thing that can changes. But if you can tap in to the core of how things work, then you just have to slowly evolve with the times, but the principle is really what will stick and help.
Technology evolves too, right? So
Yeah.
maybe when Sam Ovens was doing his ad strategy, maybe now there's like Russell Brunson and he's got his own version of it, I guess, as technologies evolve. And
But if they know how people buy and their tendencies, then that's where their systems are evergreen.
Yeah.
For sure.
Exactly. Like the truth is that people are running the same types of funnels, same types of ads that have been for like years now. And yeah, it may ad costs have increased, but like the like ultimately getting clicks and the reason why people engage and buy stuff and get clicks, that shit has not changed. That stuff has not changed. Same messaging, same stuff. It's just like how you know, the game is actually just like, how do you reduce ad cost? Like that's ultimately the game, and the truth is that as far as I can tell, like it is just volume of creatives. Like it's volume of creatives and testing, trying to find winning stuff just to be as efficient as possible. But the same messaging works. Like that hasn't changed.
Yeah, because like you said, it's hard coded.
It's hard coded.
You're a big proponent of building communities as part of your business and marketing strategy. Can you talk a bit about why you believe in running a community as an entrepreneur and its potential on your business?
Sure. So yeah, I've been building communities online for nearly 3 years now, and I had my first private community a couple of years ago. And this was, you know, when it first became, I was like, oh, this is a thing. And I didn't have a huge audience at the time, but I still managed to get a bunch of people to pay me like $500 a month to be part of a private community. And that to me was like, oh, okay, wow. Like this is something that I didn't know was possible. Community absolutely is everything now in the internet. Like we've kind of had the kind of broadcast era of the internet where it's just like mass messaging, mass advertising, and now it's going to be all about intimacy. And actually the big thing for me, the real big thing, the thing that I'm very excited about is what I believe is going to be like a renaissance of in-person physical experiences and moving kind of online to offline. And I actually think that's going to be the next evolution. Is people are just sick of, after like the whole pandemic and everything that happened there. I think there's going to be a renaissance of what I call like the human touch. I think human experiences, not like in a weird perverted way, but in a craft just basic human experiences, people are going to pay a premium for. I think there's going to be a premium for that. And so for me, as someone who's building my community, something I'm so excited about is the prospect of bringing like-minded people together in an offline, real-world experience type of way. Online communities, really, it's quite simple. It is a location to be able to communicate with people who are like-minded. That's ultimately what a community is online.
Right.
So you're giving people, and so for me, what my online community looks like, I have kind of two versions. The main one, the fundamental one, is my email list. So that is building people who I can, like, the only thing we can truly own in online entrepreneurship is an email list, is a list of contacts that you are allowed to contact. And so building my email list is one of the four almost like fundamental most important marketing driving things that I do in my business, is getting people onto my email list. That is what I consider like, that's my community. I then have other locations where I can communicate with my community. And that's why you can use other platforms like Discord, Facebook groups, school communities, Circle. That's what I call like a closed community. And you kind of have like your email community, and then you have a closed community where you can communicate with people at. And they're just two different styles. I personally believe in having both. I think some people like emails, some people like closed communities, but it's best to have dual coverage, in my opinion. And so ultimately, community for me is just a way to communicate with people who are really engaged in your world.
Yeah, definitely. And I know that you're a big fan of school. And we all know that, the news of Alex Hormozi purchasing his shares, his equity into School, which apparently doubled its traffic from 8 million monthly visitors to 17 million almost instantly.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's just the power
Because his
of
name
influence.
carries so much weight.
Yeah.
Now you have all the little Alex Hermozis like us.
Yeah, all
They're
these
like, "Yes, cool."
aspiring entrepreneurs just following along. Yeah.
I'll tell a little side story here, because this is a little bit of a tactic that I've used, and I used at the beginning of the year. And this is a lesson that I learned a couple of years ago, in that it is beneficial for you to trend jack and hop on trends. What I mean by that is that, say for example, so I'll give the example of school. So at the beginning of the year, I was about to make the decision of which platform I was going to launch my community in. And I was planning to launch my community in April. That was when I had got it in my project kind of calendar. April I was going to launch my community. And the question was, do I launch it on School or do I launch it on Circle? Those are the two options for me. And then in January, beginning of January, Alex Hormozi makes this announcement, and then I'm like, well, shit. Like, this guy's literally made the biggest investment in his life. Like, this is a no-brainer for me. But I then saw another opportunity. I was like, I knew I'd learned this before, is to jump on trends. And for once, this trend was directly relevant to me, because I'd been building communities online for a couple of years. And I was like, I can actually speak about this topic because I know about it. And so I was like, I'm going to jump on this trend. And I made a series of a few videos on YouTube, where I was like, this is time. People are going to be, the search inquiries are going to be high as hell for this.
Yeah.
And I trend jacked this. I got a video that I think has got nearly 100,000 views, and I got a ton of traffic to my YouTube channel. And that to me was like,
wow.
I then managed to get 1,000 plus leads for my business. So I use that kind of like, okay, there's some trending topic, it's relevant to me, I'm going to put my spin on it. And it was a bet that played out, like it paid off as well. Like, and so that's a bit of a side lesson there for people. Like, if there's something that is relevant, that is potentially a bit of a trend, jump on it, make your version, and you will have an increase in traffic to your stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And I did notice that video when I kind of first looked through your YouTube channel. And what would you say is your average view count per video?
Right now it's like in the like low hundreds. And that it's funny because you kind of go back to that chunk of time, and those, there was a chunk where they're getting thousands. And so this is actually quite common for YouTubers. By the way, like 90% of your content will be at a pretty low baseline. And so for me, just with because I've had some kind of pivots over the years, I've got, a slightly different audience to what I had like years ago.
Sure.
So my baseline views are quite low. I've learned now, I've kind of got over this idea of like, I'm looking for thousands of views. I am stoked that a couple of hundred people are spending an hour watching me talk about my Instagram growth thing. I'm like,
of course.
That's insane.
And I'm not saying trying to compare, but I did just want to point out that on your point of trend tracking, right? Like what a contrast that sometimes you just have to be in the right place at the right time and like latch onto the right topic and, your thumbnail and title and all those little things. And it just exploded to, like you said, almost 100,000 views. So that's incredible.
For sure. Yeah. It was very much like, I did tap into all of my like knowledge as well. Like I kind of like, I had a hunch. I was like, I think I can make a video that gets a lot of views. I probably didn't think it would get that many. But I put the most effort I've ever put into any video into that one video. Kind of like goes to show, like if you put in significant effort, you get outsized rewards. But I wasn't trying to like grow my YouTube channel, but I was like, I'm going to jump on this.
Yeah. And another little contrast I just want to point out, because I'm also in your school community, I noticed you made a post a couple of weeks back about one of your clients who made like one of his first YouTube videos, got 22 views. And what do you know? It acted as a lead attraction video, and a lead came through his pipeline, and he was able to close that client for however many, thousands of dollars. So it's really not about views. It's just about like putting out the content nonetheless. And you never know who it's going to reach, because thanks to the beautiful YouTube algorithm.
Well, they say that you're one video away from changing your life and business.
True.
Right?
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, you can make one video and make it about a trend, but when you start looking at the complete work, the body of work, all the other videos, and they start to contextualize who you are, it can make it so much more compelling, where like a video with 20 views could actually, you only need one person to reach out to you, and that can, change the trajectory of your business. It could add some more revenue. It could fund a few other projects. You can take that next step. So by just being consistent and being really solid with your messaging, I feel really feeds into that body of work. And then when you get a video with 100K plus views, then you're just feeding the system you already have in place.
Exactly.
Which is awesome.
Yeah.
I like, just a final say on like my client Dan, who that happened to. I know the big thing was like, he was like, I just closed the client because he watched a video that has only got 22 views. And like the positive feedback from that experience, like of him to be like, I need to make more content. Like, as in like, it's just the biggest thing is like just being like, oh, okay, I haven't put any effort in, but like, this is the rewards you get from like putting your face out there. Like he's now going to go and he's going to put way more effort into his content. He's going to be way more consistent. He's going to enjoy it because he knows it makes him money. And like that's the biggest lesson is you do not need to be getting thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of views to make amazing money. Like just as Seb said, the most important thing is your messaging and just showing up consistently.
Amen to that.
With that being said, I'm curious, what is your opinion on what the best business model for entrepreneurs to start in 2024 would be?
So the truth is, it depends. It depends on who you are, and it depends on your personal character traits, attributes, skill sets, desires. Because again, going back to the idea of entrepreneurship, everything works. Hey, everything works. But I tried to start an e-commerce business and it failed. Was that because...
Same.
Yeah, look, hey, it's the classic story. Most people start drop shipping or e-commerce because they're like, I just need to sell stuff. I look back at that and and it totally gave me the foundation of like entrepreneurship skills that I have, like content creation, content editing, like messaging, Facebook ads, like copywriting, email marketing. Like it gave me the foundation, but it failed. So it's like I think when for people getting into entrepreneurship, it's more about being very aware that like this is a long game. I'm now on my like 4th business, and I've had businesses with business partners who are extremely like impressive entrepreneurs, made millions online. Very like it's like go into this with the attitude of like I'm cool with the first few not working out. And that's one thing that I think the problem is that you don't go into anything thinking it, you know, with the mindset of this is going to fail.
Yeah, so it's a hard pill to swallow.
It's this twisted like thing, which is like you can only see in hindsight, to be honest, because you do have to go into it thinking it's gonna work. But as we know, the reality is the first few fail, and
gotta have patience.
You got to have patience. And, you know, I always look at this statistic of like the average successful founder is 47 years old. And I think that should give everyone a lot of hope that it doesn't matter. Like you're not expected to win when you're young. You're expected to learn skills when you're young.
You put a big emphasis on simplicity and freedom in your business model. How can entrepreneurs design their business so that it supports their lifestyle goals from the get-go?
Yeah, great question. And the answer is it starts with you need to design your constraints. And so constraints for me are these micro rules that align with your personal values and how you want to live your life. I'll give you an example for me. I haven't taken a call before 1 p.m. for nearly a year now. So I haven't got on a Zoom call or a call with anyone for nearly a year. And that is because I designed my life and I set a constraint, a rule. So people can't contact me or they can't get on a call with me in the mornings unless there was a very like, you know, unless it was Hormozy, for example, or you guys or Hormozy were like, hey, I can only speak. So I heard this example from Hormozy the other day. Some entrepreneur wanted to spend some time with him and he was like, can you do Mondays? And Hormozy was like, no, I'm not free on Mondays. And the guy was he was like, I'm only free on Mondays. And this guy was like, well, can you do a Tuesday? And he was like, no, you're not getting it. I'm only free to talk on Mondays. And this guy was like, okay, but can you not, I can only do Tuesdays. And Alex was just like, sorry, dude.
Setting his boundaries.
His boundaries. So what is a constraint? It's a boundary. So for me, a simple one, I don't take calls in the morning, so I can focus on like 3 to 4 hours of like deep work. Super simple. I then have 2 hours during the day, middle of the day, where I can go to the gym. So from 11 till 1 p.m., that's my gym time. And then I do all of my calls in the afternoon and evening. So that's a simple kind of like rule there. To be honest, like for me, that actually is the most important thing, is actually just owning your calendar and your diary. Like that truly is like the real unlock, is that if you own your time, you kind of have your freedom. And so for me, like I just fit everything into those like constraints about how I schedule my stuff. I try and make some rules, like I batch tasks. So I do things in batches, so I'm not task switching. But yeah, if I really think about kind of like designing my life, it has just all stems from the fact that I have complete ownership of when I do stuff and when I don't do stuff.
And I'm sure it's taking you some time to get to that point too, right? Like in the beginning when you were struggling, barely having food to put on the table, I'm sure you're like a little bit more kind of flexible with your time, but I think, yeah, it's important to like set those boundaries early on and like really do your best to stick to them, because you really do have to design your life and business however you want.
Really
as an
do.
entrepreneur.
Yeah, absolutely. And setting those boundaries is just super important. But the truth is like you look at the top entrepreneurs, and that's the biggest thing that they talk about is just having boundaries. And it's the difference between being proactive and reactive. And so like having a calendar where you've designed when you do stuff and not letting anyone or anything have a say in that, it's the ultimate power. Like it's that ultimately is what freedom is to me. Freedom is just having complete control over your time.
That's something we definitely have to work on.
Well, we have our constraints, but we can definitely add some more. It's a millionaire mindset to have, definitely. And you're big on mindset, right? Mindset plays an important role in building your business, and basically in anybody's business. I'm curious to know, what mindset shifts do you think entrepreneurs need to embody to make a jump from, say, 5K a month to 50K a month? What are some of the other mindsets that could help them achieve that?
I can only say through the example of myself. I'll only give my example.
Sure.
When I was making 5K last year per month, I was addicted to nicotine. I was drinking every night. I was 20 pounds heavier. I was foregoing my health and exercise for the first time in my life. I was sacrificing friendships, sacrificing my mental health. I wasn't spiritual, and fast forward a year and now I've just passed 50K. I am no longer addicted to nicotine. I drink on very rare occasions. I'm within touching distance of being, the fittest that I've ever been. After this podcast, I will meditate for half an hour before I go to bed. I will do 20 minutes of reading. Again, something I didn't do last year. Every morning I sit down and the first thing I do is I gratitude journal and I write down my goals for the month. And every morning just after I get up, I read a set of affirmations of the vision of my future life. It takes me about 5 minutes to read. And I'm a completely different person than what I was when I was doing 5K per month.
Wow. That is quite the transformation. Is that something that kind of happened overnight? Like something just clicked, or progressively you started changing your habits?
So I would say it was a little bit of both. I think when I started my business a year ago, it was like, okay, that seemingly was a bit of a trigger for me, being like, I need to level up now. And which is quite interesting, like the fact that I was the worst I had ever been, I was working with other entrepreneurs. Technically, again, on the superficial level looking like we were doing well. But I was the unhealthiest, probably most stressed I'd ever been. So I actually do think there was a bit of I kind of had to rely on myself, and I came back to my fundamentals. A big thing was, getting my health back, really focusing on that, prioritizing my health, prioritizing my nutrition, and then actually embarking on something that I'd always pushed away or said that I would indulge in when I had made it, or whatever the fuck that means, which is my curiosity in spirituality, which I had always kind of pushed off, and said that I would never. I was like, that can wait, and so that is something that I have been kind kind of like I started that journey on about 9 months ago. And yeah, just realizing that the person that is capable of having a 50K per month business has to be a different human than the person who's capable of having a 5K business. But those things stem from, really, it's like habits, standards, and goals. And so those are the three things that I always come back to. It's like habits, standards, and goals. So goal, where do I want to get to? Habits, what are the habits that are going to help me get to my goals? And then standards, making sure that I like maintain a certain standard.
Right.
And yeah, if I think about that, like the truth is I'm a much more focused, and yeah, I'm just a different person than I was a year ago.
You evolved. That's amazing. Makes
That's
perfect
powerful.
sense.
Yeah.
On that note, what does the concept of a freedom number mean to you, and how can entrepreneurs determine their own freedom number?
Yeah, so a freedom number is taken from an idea that I first learned from Tim Ferriss when I read The 4-Hour Work Week back in 2011. So I was at university in my final kind of like 2 years of university, and I read The 4-Hour Work Week, and I was, it kind of rocked my perspective on life, to be honest. I think as most people who have read it will agree that it's almost like a philosophical book rather than a technical manual on like how to, it's the philosophy of living the good life, like questioning what is the good life. So part of that was this idea of a target monthly income. So Tim Ferriss, in the first I think it's the first chapter, he's like, hey, just a heads up, you are way closer to living your dream lifestyle than you think, and here's how. And he broke it down. It was like, if you want to drive an Aston Martin, like here's how much it's going to cost to rent an Aston Martin for the month, $1,500, whatever. And here are all the other things, like, he gave an example of someone's life and he broke it down, like these elements, like a penthouse, like whatever. And it was like, you're going to need 20 grand to live this, what people would consider a dream lifestyle. And then he was like, and this is, you can do this by doing these types of jobs, like, and getting paid this much and doing this. And it was all of a sudden, it was like this idea of like, okay, instead of saying, I'm going to go get a job and that job's going to give me a salary, and with that salary, I'm going to allocate that money. In fact, it's reverse engineering and being like, what do I want my lifestyle to look like? And how much does that cost? And so itemizing it and breaking down and having a target of saying, I want to live in this type of apartment or this type of house. It's going to cost around $3,000 to $4,000 per month. I want to be able to put this much money aside into my investment account each month. I want to be able to go on holidays once every quarter, and it's going to cost this much. So it's the opposite. So you reverse engineer your dream lifestyle, and the aim is to come up with a freedom number. And the freedom number is like, what is that number for you to get your dream lifestyle? And you can calculate it. For me, I've calculated my freedom number as $106,329 per month. That's what I've considered my freedom number, and that's like a real like punchy target. But I've always probably dreamt a bit. I mean, not too big, but like I like aiming for big goals because they scare me and motivate me. I think for most people, having a kind of like a freedom number that's like closer within touching distance is more beneficial. So if, for me, if I was at 5K, I'd be like, okay, well, what really to me makes me feel free? And for most people, it's going to be around 20, a real like something that's going to completely transform their life is probably between $20,000 to $40,000 per month. Is going to be like, that's like almost FU money. Like as in close to, I mean, there's in my opinion, there's no such thing as FU money. I think everyone's got someone that can come and take things. Like there's plenty of examples of that. So I don't think there's no such thing as FU money, but I think there's the feeling of FU money. And I think that's like, we're looking at in Western cultures, we're looking at about $30,000, $30,000 to $40,000 is kind of like where you're like, I'm good.
Per month.
Per month, yeah.
Per month, yeah.
Why is your number so specific? Why do you recommend your number be specific rather than just like some obscure rounded number?
Yeah, good. That's a great question. This is actually where people screw up. I've calculated, and this is why my number is like 106,329. And I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but like, I've got it on my phone. It can't because it's in sleep mode now, but it's literally, I look at it every time it's across there, $106,329. And that to me, one of my favorite books is Psycho-Cybernetics. I would actually say it's my favorite book. If you haven't read it, 100% read it. But it's this idea that humans are target-seeking creatures. And so by having a target that is specific and meaningful to you, that is going to be the thing that actually drives you forward to make that, like materialize that and actualize that target. If you just say like, if you pick just a round number, $10,000, $50,000, $100,000 per month, like there is no relevance to you. So what I've done, and by reverse engineering and actually calculating all of the itemized things that I want my life to look like at that number, and then just adding them up, like I have Tom's number. Like no one owns this number. This is my target, my goal. And that's really important in that you find what your goal is. So yeah, if you haven't calculated your freedom number, all you need to do is you just need to like have an idea, and this will take about an hour, have fun with it. Just think like, okay, like in a year's time or 2 years or whatever, the kind of, where would I love to get to, and how much, what do I want my lifestyle to look like? And fucking throw it out there. Like have fun with it. You want a nice car, throw that in there. Like get clear, get specific. This is a big thing that I've worked on this past year, is the idea of abundance. In that I probably grew up in a family where the idea of money being evil was the kind of core theme. And so I've had to work very hard, like this past year, on working through that and understanding that money is just an energy flow, and it's an abundant resource, and it's infinite. The shit is infinite, and there is no reason.
It's just a tool.
It's a tool, and there is no reason why I can't throw a ludicrous number out there and make it happen. And there's no reason why I shouldn't either. That's the big thing that I've worked on.
Yeah, I can relate to that wholeheartedly.
Yeah, it's a really good mindset to have, understanding that it is infinite, and you can attract it, and equally you can repel it and push it away. Right,
yeah,
it all comes
all
down
about
to
the
that
energetics.
mindset.
Yeah.
Do you have a very unique and interesting story that I want to learn more about, particularly when it comes to your background in dentistry? So can you tell me a bit about your transition from being a cosmetic dentist and then getting into business coach and marketing, and also getting into that creative space as a creator yourself?
For sure, yeah. So the challenge is, how do I condense a 10-year journey into less than a few minutes? Is that what you're asking me the challenge to do? Yeah,
That's it.
Give us like a 3 to 5 minute, or let's say 3 to 3 minute.
I'll keep it as short as possible. I've
Sure.
Fortunately had a bit of practice with this now, so
okay.
It is weird. First up, like absolutely, it's really unconventional, and it's a question I get asked all the time. And 10 years ago. To this day, I was a practicing dentist, and I had studied for like 7 years at university. My whole kind of like youth was based around trying to get into the medical field, and I finally got there. It took a lot of energy, a lot of time, and when I got there, I was like, this can't be it. This can't be what everyone said is the dream. And I found myself, I was a bit of a nerd when I was a dentist. I was a big nerd. I loved doing things as best as I could. I got kind of obsessed with cosmetic dentistry and kind of specialized within cosmetics for the kind of like 2 years that I was practicing. I started lecturing, kind of actually ended up lecturing all over the world. I kind of had a fast rise in that career, and I ended up getting what I thought was going to be my dream job. And so I had my dream job after a couple of years, and then I was sat in my practice in the middle of beautiful rural England, and I was sat there with my nurse, and I was like, oh shit, this is it for the next 40 years, right? And it kind of hit me. I was like, this ain't it. This ain't it. One of the biggest things that I was struggled with was I never felt like I could be myself. And fast forward to today, where I'm a creator, I'm my own boss. I have full autonomy and freedom to be the person that I truly am. When I was a dentist, I couldn't curse. I couldn't say what I really felt. I had to like be professional, whatever that means.
Right.
And yeah, I decided that wasn't it. And I decided I was going to roll the dice. I was only 25. Well, at least when I say only, to me, that was like, I was like, I've got decades ahead of me. So that was, in fact, when I had my first kind of interaction with a coach. I paid $3,000, put it on an Amex card, and worked with one of the probably most like well-known career transition coaches in London, who helped me over a 3-month period to figure out that, okay, my next thing was going to be going to the tech industry, which is where I spent the next kind of like 6-7 years, until I kind of felt that I finally really had a good grasp on like, okay, this is who I am. This is what I love. This is who I want to help. This is how I want to help them. And fast forward to today, a few years after making my kind of like full-time jump into entrepreneurship, I'm here and I have my own business. I get to work with amazing people like you every single day. And I truly feel like after I'm now at kind of the end of where I really wished I could be, which is the start of a journey where I feel like I'm finally in the right place. And yeah, every day in the last like few months has felt just incredible. Every single week gets better and better as I bring on more awesome clients. Really what I've realized is that the internet is just an amazing tool to magnetize people like you to you. You just surround yourself with people that you vibe with.
Yeah,
it's sick.
Just
it's
living
so
the
sick.
dream.
living the dream. Literally the dream that I kind of thought there has to be a better way out there. And maybe we'll kind of touch on this, but the big kind of trigger moment for me was reading the 4-Hour Work Week. When I was in university, that was the thing in my subconscious that triggered, okay, this alternative path might be for you. But unfortunately, I had to have a taste of what the kind of real world was before it was like, okay, yeah, let's go find out what else is out there.
Unfortunately, fortunately, right? Because I'm sure that experience in and of itself, like, opened your eyes to what else is out there, or made you understand that that's not what you wanted to do for the rest of your life.
That's how I see it. It's funny when people ask me, they're like, okay, so why did you quit being a dentist? Surely you get paid loads. I was like, it depends what your definition of loads is. The way the industry was going in the UK, very different to the way it is in, say, North America. That actually like general salaries were on the decline and not keeping in pace with inflation and rising kind of living costs. So for me, I was like, this just doesn't make sense. Like this doesn't make sense. Speaking to some people in the industry as well who are like mentors to me, they were miserable. And so that was the signal to me was like, I don't need to, there's too many red flags here. Let's go check out some other flags, see what's going on.
Yeah. And not that we want to get into this, but the whole medical industry, obviously there's a lot of shady things that go on that maybe a lot of the general public is not aware of. But I did watch one of your YouTube videos where you kind of got into that and something that you were asked to do that was actually quite unethical. But anyways, we can leave that for whoever wants to check out that YouTube video.
Well, that's why we visit a biodentist. Well, that's what they call them, right? But it's a dentist that takes more natural approach, is not using any of the chemicals or fluorides or
so he says,
harsh things. Well, I mean, that's what I hope. But no, that's awesome. So like, okay, so you went through this like career transition coach, and like, what was your vision in mind when you're in dentistry? What did that like Heaven Island look for you, like of where you actually wanted to be? Was it doing exactly what you're doing now, or some like variation of it, or this is just the start of where that is going to end up being for you?
So I do have a bit of a confession. When I always knew that I enjoyed education, and that's because, again, like I just was I was naturally drawn to it when I was at university. People would always come and they would always come to me for advice on stuff, even though I was still a student, because they knew I would be in the internet forums. I'd be finding out information that they wouldn't have access to. So I've always been I've always loved educating and helping people out. Like, so that's kind of like has been a natural thing for me. My mark on the dentistry field was a couple of months before leaving. I posted a video of me doing a filling on my YouTube channel. This was like, I think like 10 years ago now. And I think that video has like over 500,000 views now. I think it's coming up to a million now.
Wow.
Wow.
And this was at a time when no one posted anything about teeth online, like especially on YouTube. And I've always had this kind of like, quite interestingly, I always considered myself to not be creative.
Okay.
And this has actually been up until very recently, maybe in the last like year or so, where it's kind of dawned on me. I was like, hang on. Like, you say you're not creative, yet you have a ton of evidence that suggests you really are creative. And I think it's because I grew up really just focused on science. You know, in the traditional kind of education system, you had to get into the medical field, you had to specialize in science. So I considered myself a scientist. And it's become clear, like, no, actually I am like pretty creative, you know, and that's what I guess is almost like a limiting belief that I've had to kind of to get across, is that actually I am, like, I've got evidence that I'm pretty creative.
100%.
So it very kind of interestingly, always been interested in education. And it was when I went through that coaching process and I saw, firstly, I saw how much my coach was making. He had a calendar up on the back of his door. He was working in the most premium location in London. He had a house, and that was where he would do his kind of in-person kind of coaching sessions. And yeah, he was charging people like 20K multiple times a week.
Wow.
And I was like, yeah, and that to me was actually just, I couldn't even comprehend that much money. And that to me was like, okay, it wasn't actually about the money. It was, I think I got triggered by seeing how just enjoyable his work was. Like, he just worked with really interesting people. He got to have hard conversations with them. He got to help them. And he was working with, like, you know, high net worth individuals, smart people. And I was like, and he was working a couple of hours a day, doing content creation as well. He was ahead of the curve with that. And, you know, for those of you, people, you guys might be familiar, there's an entrepreneur called Daniel Priestley, who was his first coach. And so he's a relatively big kind of like business coach within the industry. And I guess from that moment, that the seed of like, okay, where could you potentially go? That kind of got set. And then I had to just go on some fat journey to actually learn about how the real world operates, which that's the real journey that I went on. When you step out of the medical bubble, it is like you are just hit with like, oh, this is where everyone else is. Like there's us doing this over here, and there's everyone else, and they're operating in a completely different world, and without limits, without restrictions, and it was just like overwhelm.
Wow.
And I didn't understand any of it. Like I had to get my first job out of dentistry. I had to work 2 unpaid internships in London. I worked 6 days a week. 3 days a week I worked as a dentist, and then 3 days a week I worked in these unpaid internships. Did that for 6 months, working 6 days a week. And my first job, I managed to finally get a full-time job on like a very, very like basic salary in London. And I remember I think in my first day, my new boss like turned around to me, he sat behind me, and he was like, Tom, can you just send over the deck for the meeting that we got later? And I remember just thinking, I was sat there at my computer, I was like, what the fuck is a deck? And I was literally like, I had to have that moment where I'm like, this is going to go down badly. You know, I had to turn around at this guy who had hired like a 26-year-old dentist in this like, you know, this like entry-level sales job for a tech company. And
this was after your dentist job.
This was after my dentist job.
Oh, okay. I see.
Yeah, and so that's how I kind of like got my foot in the door after dentistry. Was I had to start from the very bottom, and yeah, a huge amount of education, and it took me years. Genuinely years.
It's a great way to learn. You learn while you earn.
Exactly.
Right. It's my favorite way to learn too.
Yeah, so that was the start. The start was I kind of like. I saw what my coach, his life and what he was doing and how he was helping people. And I think that put a seed in my head of like where potentially I'd like to get to. I think at the time I kind of knew maybe that was the vision. I wouldn't say I had it. I don't think I got clear on a vision until like a year ago, to be completely honest with you. Everything up until then has been what kind of this is a kind of like this is like the mantra that I have with my like private community and my clients. It's the F around and find out approach. Like you just got to try stuff and try and get to the point where you eventually find what it is you love doing. Very fortunate to have finally got there.
Beautiful. I wanted to touch on something you said earlier, how you kind of convinced yourself that you weren't creative because you were in this like very scientific field. And I have a belief, because there's a lot of people who still say that. And I feel like it's just a limiting self-belief. I believe personally that every human on this earth has some kind of a creative aspect to it. Like, I think it's just how we're wired, but it's just a matter of like whether you hone it or not throughout, you know, your upbringing and adulthood. So especially if you're in this like scientific field your whole life and you're almost like being put into this box, right? By the schooling system, by the industry, by your peers, teachers, whatever. And you're not exposed to like this whole other world of creativity. So you don't really think that you have that in you, but it's like, again, it's just a limiting belief. All you have to do is break out of that belief and then try it out. And you never know, you might actually be more creative than you thought. So I love that.
Yeah, I read this book in university. I forget the name, but I remember the author. Daniel Pink was his name. And it was about how society, and this is 2014 when I was graduating university, how society and the schooling system is getting people to think very analytically, and it's disconnecting them from their creative side. And he's also saying, predicting for the future, and this is like 2014, so a lot of it's coming true now, that computer algorithms and not necessarily AI back then, but some sort of advanced computer systems would be taking on all of these analytical jobs, because just data management. And it really is that creative side of people's brains that's going to be the difference between human and machine, and the one element that can actually make you stand out and be unique in a society where all this information is accessible.
So creativity is what
now.
makes us human, I would say.
Yeah, for sure.
So you've already kind of touched on this. I wanted to ask, what were some of the biggest challenges you faced when making that career switch, and how you overcame them? So one of the things you mentioned was just like a learning curve, right? A big learning curve. And I guess, how did you overcome that?
Yeah, look, the same way as you attack anything in life is you just have to put one foot in front of the other. And, you know, I remember, again, like kind of similar to that first job out of dentistry when I was in tech. And it was for a tech startup company who probably had about 30 or so employees. And it was a really important time for their kind of in their like their life cycle. Everything was kind of, they'd gone through the like seed stage. They were now getting some kind of some investors in that were going to really help drive their growth. And I mean, I remember joining, and then we had just finally managed to secure a meeting with one of the UK's biggest like national retail like shops, like a big department store in the UK. And I remember a few weeks into this job, I was in the boardroom at this giant business's offices. And I remember just being like, I am so out of my depth here. So out of my depth. I think it was like 26 or whatever. And my CEO was there, the founder, my boss, my manager was there. And this was a huge deal. This was a huge meeting. And I was there because I guess like I was supposed to be like a national kind of sales rep. And so technically I was there to kind of like hold this relationship. And I remember like, I basically didn't say a thing during this meeting, because the truth is I didn't have a fucking clue what anyone was saying. I was sat there and I didn't have a clue what these people were talking about. And I remember there was just this one moment towards the end of the meeting when there was a little bit of silence. And my instincts took over. It was like, Tom, you have to contribute. You have to say something in this meeting. And I remember, I don't know, I have no idea what I said, but I said something. And I remember there being a bit of a silence after I said it. I remember 10 minutes, fast forward 10 minutes, we're walking out of this meeting, walking down onto the street. And we're there and we're kind of, you know, like adrenaline's a little bit high. And I remember it was a bit like, it was like quiet for about 30 seconds after we like walked outside of this office onto the London streets. And all of a sudden, my CEO, who is this lovely, lovely lady, and she turned to me and looked at me and was like, Tom, why did you say that? And I was like, you know, if you can imagine like what panic was, imagine like adrenaline plus immediate panic, being like, I think I've fucked this now. And I just remember just, you know, imagine that feeling of just thinking, oh my God, I don't even know what I've done, but I've screwed up big time here. And I just said, I was like, I'm so sorry. Like, I just felt like I had to say something in that meeting. And yeah, she wasn't happy. But guess what? Like, no one knows, no one can prepare you for anything. Fast forward like a year, I'd managed to like finally figure out what this whole stuff was about. I sold it into their shop. I crushed it. I got it into basically every major retailer in the UK. I launched the product into France as well. And fast forward a year, and I'd like learned all this stuff, and I'd figured it out, and I ended up doing really well.
Nice.
But no one can prepare you for the unknown. Like, no one can. You can try, but you can't until you step foot in the arena, which is what I tell people all the time. You know, people, you guys and me are here, and we've recognized the importance of being creative and creating. And so we're here doing the uncomfortable stuff, which is actually putting ourselves in the arena and taking swings. Whereas most people are too afraid to take that first step. And that's really like like ultimately that's the only way we learn, is by putting ourselves into the coal face and just actually feeling the heat. And we learn from that heat.
Definitely. Most definitely. Yeah. And what was your role at that company?
My role was it was a sales rep. I was like a junior salesperson who the team was only there was only 2 salespeople, and myself included. And yeah, then a year later, I was the kind of like the national manager in sales, and we'd done really well.
Amazing.
But yeah, that was the most exciting, fast-paced job I ever have had. Also, apart from the job that I have now, I have to say that was the most fun, because I was in my mid-20s. I was living in London. I was commuting all over the place. I was going out, making friends. Like all this stuff was so new to me. Like trying to understand the business world. You know, I love learning. So it was just this just incredible kind of like short little phase where it just felt absolutely epic. So yeah, that was kind of how I started.
Sounds like an amazing learning experience.
It was, yeah.
That's kind of shaped where you are now, right?
For sure.
Can you guide us through like the evolution of Creator Launch and what inspired you to start that business? Like you had something good going on, but what was that spark, and how did it unfold to have Creator Launch now?
For sure, yeah. So Creator Launch is my current company, which I started a year ago. So it's exactly 12 months old. And before then, I'd been working in an agency with a couple of other co-founders. We were working together, and for about a year and a half, we were building communities online. So we were going to tech companies, we were going to big creators, and we were helping them launch communities, launch and grow their socials. And I'd been doing that for about a year and a half with them. And we've really built that agency to a level where, you know, on paper, maybe you could say things were going well. You know, just for kind of context, we were making around 40 to 50K per month. But the problem was like split between 3 founders and team members. That money, like I didn't see much of it. I didn't see enough of it for me to be able to be comfortable, let alone like feeling like anywhere near like I was thriving. So a year ago, it came to a point where I was like, okay, well, I've got an option here. I can take the clients that I'm like currently working with, like creators, and then kind of move them into my own thing. And that's what I decided to do. So I made the tough decision of saying, okay, like I'm going to leave you guys are going to crush it. But I'm going to go do my own thing. And it was, to say it was a trial would be an understatement. A year ago, life felt excruciing, to be completely candid with you guys.
We know what that's like.
yeah. You guys know, you guys have been through it as well. And it was by far the most brutal period of my life. And I feel like I've been through some pretty tough challenges and tests. This was a complete other level to what I'd experienced before. I kind of hope no one ever goes through that, and that's really why I'm doing what I'm doing now. I don't want people to ever have to go through that experience that I went through, where I was pretty much jumped out of a plane without a parachute and was forced to make it on the way down in very quick fashion. And I did
not
it.
Literally.
Not literally, not literally.
But it felt like it.
It felt like that, and it felt like, it was very, very challenging. But I knew that I was capable. I knew where I wanted to go, and I think a year ago was the very first time where I finally found a vision of where I wanted to get to, and that was the thing that really pulled me through that kind of challenging period.
For our like younger entrepreneur listeners, like what were some of the challenges that you were encountering as a early on entrepreneur stepping into the space? An
early founder, a solo founder.
Look, I mean, it's the challenge of every business. It's cash flow. Like that is the single challenge is how do you keep the lights on?
Right.
How do you pay rent? How do you go from a position of like, okay, there's you can potentially, it's like it is that week on week trying to be like, yeah, how do I do this? And going from someone who had pretty decent jobs, had made a a decent living, and was used to kind of like not having to worry about that kind of stuff, to all of a sudden be like, oh shit, this is really on you now. It was very challenging. I did tactically do some things though, which I think is, for the young people listening, is probably the way to go. I realized that I was like, I need to be able to like pay rent during this period. So what I did was I took up a freelancing gig where for a part-time job, I think I did about 10 hours a week. And that was enough to cover my rent for a few months. And that was I think you've just got to be, ultimately you guys will know this, the like key attribute for entrepreneurship is resourcefulness.
Yes, 100%.
Hands down the most important attribute.
Couldn't agree more.
Right? Like when we talk about creativity is like the thing that it's kind of, creativity is, I guess, is another word for resourcefulness. You've got to be creative in like how you get resources. So they're very intimately linked. But I tell you, like, seriously, that period of time, I look back and I'm like, holy shit, you were resourceful. Like you made it happen when there were times when like it was so tight. There were times where I was living off like a few dollars a day for food. The next day I was like, okay, well, I would go to a shop and I wouldn't have any money on my card. And that was the feeling of being dead broke. Like I was like, okay, this is being dead. This is dead broke. One thing that I think I had, because when we talk about resourcefulness, I'm a huge believer in investing in yourself. Like last year when I was dead broke, I still somehow managed to figure out a way to invest thousands of dollars into my education. And that may sound dumb to people, because like,
almost counterintuitive.
Counterintuitive. Yeah. I had no money, yet I was like, I know that I need to invest in my education by getting a mentor that's going to help me make more money. What do I need to do to be able to get money to be able to pay for this education? And for me, it was getting a freelance job, like getting paid to be able to do this, doing whatever I could to like get cash in somehow. I had used, I think about the previous years, I'd used up a bit of credit, like not like literally and metaphorically, with friends and family. In my past, I'd used them to help kind of fund my initial entrepreneurial ventures, which ended up failing, which is what happens with our first businesses. I didn't know that, but I know that now. You just assume your first business is going to be a success,
right?
But I realized I was like, okay, well, I don't want to have to go to that. So I tapped into my inner resource and my inner resources, and I'm really, really glad that I did, and I saw that through. And yeah, it was for a few months. I honestly, it felt like hell. Like that's the only way I can describe it, is that you are waking up every day and you don't know how you're going to do things. And I found a way. It was extremely stressful. Yeah. I think I lost a lot of hair during that time, which some poor surgeon's going to have to retransplant back into my head at some point soon. But yeah, like it was, this is the game. Like the game is, if you want a different life to other people, you're going to get tested. One thing that I have learned recently is this idea of the depths of your challenge is kind of what's related to the peaks of your success. So it's like an inverse relationship. How challenging your life has been, no matter in whatever sense of the word, will directly correlate to how successful you will be. And that's the reason why it's so common to see people who have had stories that are wild. Like you would never expect someone to be able to make a success
Right.
out of the depths of the challenges that they had been faced with, yet they do it. And so that was something I've learned recently, which felt very comforting, because I was like, to be honest, like you kind of question yourself. You're like, this is so hard. Why is this so hard? It must be because I suck. And I had to go through that feeling for months and months and months. And if anyone is feeling that now, if you're like going through that period right now, you absolutely have this, and you only lose if you quit, and you just have to keep on going.
Exactly.
And it's just one more day. What do I have to do one more day? And those, eventually you get to that point where it's like you can breathe again. And will come.
You never know when the tables can turn, when a new opportunity can come your way, or the compounding work that you've been putting in for, months and years, when something's going to come out of that. So that's kind of the beauty too of entrepreneurship, isn't it? You just never know.
Yeah, you never know. And like you hit the nail on the head though, when it comes, the one thing that I feel like I can relate to is this idea of compounding. This feeling of like it's one of my methodologies I call my systems is I call the one simple flywheel. And I actually feel it feels very much like that is how this entrepreneurship game works, in that a flywheel is something that builds and stores energy in the form of momentum. And it feels like that is what happens in the entrepreneurial process, is that you eventually, you put so much effort in without getting the rewards, that eventually you hit this J curve, this hockey stick curve, where all of a sudden you hit this point. And I've heard it called the leverage trap, which is this period in time where you kind of like, people will give up before they reach that point of the leverage trap, where they've built up enough compounding energy, but they quit just before they get the outsized returns, the leveraged returns. Yeah. And what I've seen so far in this kind of industry is typically, from starting from scratch, most people that you see have see success, it's like about 3 years. That's the one thing that I've kind of witnessed.
I would say that's
I was
a fair
reading
number.
A stat that 80% of entrepreneurs fail in their first year or first 3 years. But at the same time, failure being a critical part of that process. I think that's where, for sure. I was reading a book by Gary Vee, the 12 and a half ingredients of business or something like that. One of them was that he spoke about that really stuck to me was tenacity. And I never really dove deep into that word until that book. And he said, you just have to be tenacious. Like you need to pursue something and figure out like the puzzle and the different ways that you got to maybe work around things to make it happen. Like you can't take no for an answer. And, maybe a business will fail and those doors will close, but that doesn't mean that entrepreneurship should fail, or that being self-employed or having your own business, maybe that just wasn't the right door, right? Yep. But by sticking to it, grabbing those lessons, applying them, that's how you can actually see that light at the end of the tunnel. It makes me think, I was also in a situation, it really resonates what you just said, where I was also broke. I was in England. My credit cards were maxed out. I had like $250 in my bank account. And I wanted to be a professional like photographer and have my own clients and stuff, but I was like at 0% of that goal. But I had to figure out a way of doing it. So it involved, crashing at my buddy's house and picking up a job for a year in order to pay off my debts. But throughout that time, that pressure of like, I need to get to where I want to be, was the resource that I needed to figure out the puzzle of like, okay, like I'm going to go do this for free. I'm going to go to that meeting. I'm going to wake up early. I'm going to do all these different things. And really at the end of the day, I feel like it just gives you perspective. Like you said, the the lowest point and the highest point. You don't really learn to appreciate something until you have that contrast of, I've been broke before, or I've been not able to pay for food or rent, and like, what can I do to not make that, you know, my reality moving forward and create that abundance?
Not give up.
Not give up. But a lot of entrepreneurs do give up, and so if you feel like giving up, don't give up.
I guess it's not for everyone.
Yeah.
Not everyone's built for it. And I guess it's the way it's meant to be, right? At the end of the day, we do need like workers in other areas of life. So it's a perfect balance.
It is like, that's one thing that's become, I think I've changed my tune a little bit on this, in that I think I don't think entrepreneurship is for everyone. I do think I think that I still believe that the riskiest position you can have is to be an employee. And so when people talk about risk and how entrepreneurship is risky, I actually see it as it's the opposite. I think being an employee actually is the risky option. I think the evidence is there. The evidence is absolutely there. So for me, it's like, I want to help, and this is what my business is all about, is helping the people who have this inner compulsion towards wanting to have freedom, autonomy, do their own thing, not go down the traditional path. If they have that compulsion, you know, I feel like my job is there to help provide them with the skills that they need to be able to thrive in the online world, in you know, the skills that are going to help them be an entrepreneur. But absolutely right. Like it isn't for most people, and that is because it is really tough. Like it just is really, really tough. Like you do need to have, as you guys will know, you do need to have a big spectrum of skills. Like this is, people think like you have like a speciality. Entrepreneurship is absolutely, it's like you have to have a speciality, and then you also have to be a generalist.
Well, we're going to wrap up. We just got one last question for you. Take it away.
Yeah. Do you have any upcoming projects that you are excited about, and how can our listeners get involved with them?
Yeah, absolutely. So at the moment, I'm currently, we just kicked off our kind of summer accelerator for Creator Launch and my kind of private community, Freedom Creators. This is for kind of coaches, service providers, consultants who are looking to really just scale their business similar to how I have. So I help people implement our kind of growth infrastructure into their business, so they can hit their next kind of 6-figure milestone, just the same along the same lines as hitting their freedom number. So if it's 10K, 20K, 30K, 40K, whatever, I help people do it. So yeah, if anyone's interested in kind of potentially, you know, interested in finding out more about me, just come check out my YouTube channel or my Instagram account. You can see how I'm kind of building my personal brand. Always happy to chat in DMs with people, answer any questions. And yeah, but other than that, the one project that I'm really looking forward to, and this is a project for me, this is me getting to like what I need to do to get to the next level in my business. The next milestone is I need to learn how to delegate. And that is something that I have not had much experience in. So delegating my content has been kind of step one. That was a big project for me. So the next thing is actually is hiring a virtual assistant. So that's the big project for me this quarter. So yeah.
All right. Well, if anyone listening wants to get involved, hit up Tom.
You may get a big influx of DMs for virtual assistant.
Yeah.
Can I be your virtual assistant?
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Delegation is huge. That's something that's like a ongoing thing for us as well. I mean, every business owner needs to learn how to delegate for sure.
We're going to put all of your contact info in the description below. So if our listeners want to check you out, check out your page, your YouTube, and your content, I encourage you to follow him and learn how you can grow your business.
We usually have a hot seat section where we kind of like rapid fire questions. We don't have that for you.
I have them in my head.
But just for fun, I thought I could just ask, if you were stranded on an island, what would you bring? Just as a closer.
Does it have to be one thing? Could I have two?
Sure, you can have two.
Okay, it would be a 7-iron and a golf ball.
What was the first thing?
7-iron. Seb's laughing.
What is that?
Like
It's the type of golf club. It's the type of golf club.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? How would you survive with that?
So screw the food and the water.
Hey, look,
I'm
Just die happy.
Hey, I have a golf club that I can beat any animal to death with, and
True.
I'm able to have loads of fun on the beach hitting golf balls. So I'm totally cool with a 7-iron and a golf ball. So thank you for letting me have two things.
That's like your Wilson.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Everyone has to have their Wilson. That would be my Wilson.
Except what's the golf ball brand? One of the main ones.
Screw it. The Wilson make golf balls, so I'll have a Wilson.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
So it'll be a mini Wilson.
All right. Wow. I did not expect that, but hey, to each his own.
Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. Well, thank you so much for being here. It was a pleasure. Appreciate your time. And thanks for sharing all your knowledge and tips and strategies with us.
Lots
Thanks,
of value
guys.
for the listeners. Really excited to share this and have people peek into your mindset and the things that they can implement in their life and business to grow and improve as a person and entrepreneur. So thanks for all those insights.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure. I love hanging out with you guys. So you have an amazing business. And I'm super thrilled to just like be on this journey with you guys. So thank you so much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Amazing.
Thank you. Appreciate it,
Thank
man.
you.